We love to blame our midlife hormones for why we're gaining weight or why we can't lose weight. And most of this blame, it's on estrogen or cortisol. But there are two hormones that we completely forget about. And when they're not balanced, your body and your brain is going to work against your weight loss goals. And no amount of willpower or clean eating can fix it. But it doesn't have to be this way. And there is a solution. If you're always hungry, and especially for carbs or sugar, if you feel full, but you still keep on eating, if you eat healthy all day and then raid the pantry at night, if you wake up either totally starving or not hungry at all, and you're not even hungry until 10 or 11 in the morning, or you eat clean and healthy, but the weight isn't budging. If any of these resonate with you, you're going to find today's episode really interesting. And I want to introduce you to a friend and a colleague who I've known for probably 7, 8 years now.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
Dr. Roger Murphy is here to talk about this. So before we get into it, Dr. Roger, can you just give a quick introduction of who you are and who you serve?
Holly, I'm so delighted to get a chance to be on this podcast. I think you're just doing incredible work helping so many people. And so thank you. Thank you for letting me have an opportunity to share my story. So I just recently retired, 34 years in private practice. I'm a board certified chiropractic physician, board certified nutritional specialist, functional medicine practitioner, author of 5 books. But for 25 years, I specialized in a condition called fibromyalgia. It's a very complicated illness. These individuals tend to be very frustrated within the conventional medical world. But for the last 25 years, telemedicine practice, working with fibromyalgia patients all over the world and teaching other doctors how to do the same.
And I think one of the common symptoms for someone listening, like, oh, I don't have fibromyalgia. I think one of the common symptoms that so many women with fibromyalgia have, that so many of the women listen to this podcast are experiencing, is that weight gain and the inflammation. Is that right?
Well, the two go hand in hand. Now, let's say probably about in the beginning, I'd say probably about 70% of my patients that I have fibromyalgia were carrying around some extra weight. And we all know that that extra weight can potentially cause some problems. And in my patient's case, with fibromyalgia, this illness is a syndrome. So it's made up of a group of symptoms: diffuse, achy, sometimes disabling pain. Many of my patients were bedridden before they came to see me or contacted me by phone. Uh, Fatigue, the kind of fatigue you just literally can't get it. Some got a shower once a week. That was it. That's all they could do. Brain fog, anxiety, depression, irritable bowel syndrome. 70% of my patients had irritable bowel syndrome. 65% of them have a problem with their thyroid. So it's a condition that has a lot of moving parts. And unfortunately, you really can't drug your way out of this condition. There's just too many symptoms. If you're trying to drug your way out of it, it's, you're on half a dozen to a dozen drugs.
Right. And I think so many of those symptoms, even if someone doesn't have it, I mean, you get to that midlife age and we're experiencing a lot of this. So,
Well, the average person's walking around with inflammation. I mean,
yeah.
that's just, I mean, inflammation is a good thing until it's not controlled. We have to have inflammation. That's our immune system fighting off bacteria, pathogens, toxins, these things. We get a cut, inflammation is generated to release white blood cells to heal that up. But when this inflammation is turned on all the time, and then we're pouring gasoline on the fire, that's when you start to see conditions like fibromyalgia, cardiovascular disease, neuropathy associated with type 2 diabetes. It really, as you know, and I'm sure you share this with your clients and patients, is the two main drivers of any poor health condition, whatever you want to call it, Alzheimer's or fibromyalgia or chronic fatigue syndrome, whatever it is stress and inflammation. And those two go hand in hand.
And weight gain is a huge contributing factor, not the only one, but it is such a huge contributing factor. And a contributing factor to weight gain is our hunger hormones. So, can you introduce us to our two hunger hormones? What are they? How do they work? And how do they get out of whack?
These are what we call the diet-related hormones, and there's 3 main diet-related hormones. The first one is ghrelin. So ghrelin is your appetite hormone. It's telling you when you're hungry. So as your ghrelin level goes up, You feel like you're hungry. The challenge though for people who carry around some extra weight is the more adipose tissue, the more fat cells you have, the more ghrelin you have. So it's this vicious cycle where, you want to lose weight, but as you're gaining more weight, you find it's harder and harder and harder. The second hormone that you mentioned earlier is cortisol. So cortisol is a hormone that really drives this production of belly fat. And we know if you're carrying around belly fat, this visceral yellow fat, it increases your heart attack and stroke risk by something like 200%. If you're carrying around 20 extra pounds, just 20 extra pounds, which isn't a lot for a lot of people, you increase your risk of all causes of death by 20%. If you're over 20 pounds, then that number goes up to like 250%. So it's quite a difference. But the other hormone that really regulates our appetite is leptin. And leptin is our satiating hormone. So as we're eating, our leptin levels will go up or go down to tell us when we're had enough. But unfortunately, as you're carrying around too much weight, what you find is that leptin level, just like insulin sensitivity, it quits being effective. And so now you're eating and you never get that turn off message from your brain that, hey, I'm full. I don't need to eat anymore. So these hormones really regulate how well or how poorly our diet, our appetite and our diet performs and either helps us or hinders us from being as healthy as we'd want to be.
And what would you say for someone listening? Because I think we get fed so many different stories. What are some of the biggest myths that women believe about our hunger, our cravings, and the balance of these hormones?
Well, so many people have tried to lose weight. I mean, my patients, and myself included, I mean, for the first 6 years working my fibromyalgia patients, I knew they needed to lose weight. They needed to lose weight because I would share with them, you're carrying around all this inflammation. And you could see it, when someone's carrying around 30, 40, 50 extra pounds, you can see they just look inflamed, whether that's in their face, their thighs, wherever it is. I mean, they look like they're not healthy. I mean, it's just hard to miss. So I would share with them, hey, we're going to get you, first of all, we're going to get you on the right nutraceuticals, so over-the-counter supplementation that's going to help you get out of bed, have some energy, help you deal with stress, because changing your diet is stressful, no doubt about it. And these individuals had already been under years and years of stress with an illness that most people didn't understand, and most doctors kind of ignore. They don't know what to do with. But once I was able to get them a little bit of energy, then I could get them on a healthy diet, a whole foods diet, the diet we want our clients and patients to eat the rest of their lives. Because I would tell them the only way to reverse your fibromyalgia, it could have been in one of my only way to reverse your cardiovascular type 2 diabetes from the other books that I've written, is to get healthy. Now, that sounds so simplistic when you're bedridden and you're 40 pounds overweight and you're on 12 medications. But the only way that you can feel good again and stay that way is you got to get healthy. And you can't be healthy if you're not eating healthy. You can't do it. You can't stay healthy if you're not eating healthy. Eventually, it's going to cause some problems. But unfortunately, when I would share this with my patients, they would do the zone, they would do the sugar busters, they would do the HGH. Remember the HGH diet?
Mhm.
They would do that, and maybe they lose a little bit of weight, but they couldn't stay on it. And I knew I had to figure out something other than saying, "Here's another sheet of, the zone or sugar buster diet or whatever it is. Here's another sheet of paper. Here, do this diet." I had to come up with something, and fortunately, a few years later, I found something that worked like a charm time after time after time.
Yeah. And we'll get into that in a minute. But one more question before we get into that. What are some of the different ways? I mean, so we've got, diet, obviously diet. And by diet, I don't mean going on a diet. By diet, I mean what you eat, your diet of food, your nutrition. What are some of the different ways that we can balance our hunger hormones? And then what does it actually look like when the hormones are balanced? Because we're probably walking around not knowing that we're unbalanced. We probably feel it, but we're not like, okay, well, I know that I'm, my leptin didn't kick in and I don't feel like I'm full. Like we're not like aware of that. So what does it actually like? What would a woman experience when these hormones are actually balanced?
Well, yes, you feel good. I mean, you feel healthy. You feel at ease. There's a mental clarity that goes with this as well. It's not just about losing the weight and getting rid of the inflammation. And certainly losing the weight and getting rid of inflammation, you also reduce your risk of heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes. My patients would typically reverse their type 2 diabetes within 3 months. Cardiovascular patients were, high cholesterol or abnormal lipid panels will reverse it within 3 months. But mentally, Holly, that was the thing that I didn't really realize until, several months into using this program, is that mentally they just felt so much sharper. They felt better about themselves because they were able to be proactive and do something that finally worked. So many of them, as I mentioned earlier, tried so many diets. Jenny Craig, Weight Watchers. Weight Watchers, this blew me away with this stat, but the average weight loss over a 2-year period for Weight Watchers is 5.5 pounds. So it's about a little over 2 pounds a year that you lose in Weight Watchers. Well, that's not very motivating. And that's what I saw with my patients too, is that when they would start a diet, if they didn't see results pretty quick, they got unmotivated. But it was really hard to stay on a healthy diet. I mean, it's hard for everybody, but the benefits are so humongous that if you can just feel that for a week or two, it's a life changer. And for my patients, it was the only thing that really was able to keep them from getting back in bed and not being able to live life.
And all of this and your huge heart for helping women, all of this led you down a path to develop something which then took you down a a lot of different twists and turns. So what's the talk about the protocol, talk about the product that you formulated, what it does, and then kind of where this is at now.
So we talked a little bit about these hormones here. This is Jonna. So Jonna came to me when I had a brick and mortar clinic here in Birmingham, Alabama, years ago. But she traveled from Colorado to come see me with her husband, and she'd been bedridden for the last year and a half. And she told me when she came, or her husband did, that they thought this was going to be her last Christmas together. And when I met Jonna, went into the treatment room, and she was wheelchair bound, and she could be out of bed about 4 hours a day. That was kind of her limit in a recliner. She could take a shower once a week. That was kind of the only activity she could do. And she was so weak, Holly, that she could just really talk. And with the interview, I mean, I really had a hard time conversing with her, even though she's sitting right there. And, as she's talking to me, her husband's sitting next to me, and he's got tears, just, it just broke my heart. And I always ask my patients, what is your why? Why do you want to get healthy? And Jonna told me, I want to hike in the mountains with my husband again. And I want to be the wife that I haven't been in years. I haven't been able to do anything in years. And I'm just feel so guilty and remorseful about it. I said, well, John, I don't know if I can get you hiking in the mountains, but I know I can get you out of that bed and get you living a life that's much more compatible than what you've got right now. And fortunately, using the protocols that I had developed, I was able to help her lose about 40 pounds. And that was 40 pounds of inflammation that allowed her to have dramatically less pain, dramatically more energy. And she was able to, within 6 months, able to start staying out of bed full time. Within a year, she was hiking the mountains, canoeing and camping out and doing all things that she wanted to do. And the way that happened was I developed a product years ago. So 6 years into focusing on fibromyalgia after my first book came out, I was lecturing out in St. Louis, Missouri at a physician conference. And one of the practitioners came up to me and he said, Dr. Murphy, I know your frustration with trying to help your patients get healthy. That's what we try to do with functional medicine, treating the underlying cause. So I've got something that works fantastically for weight loss. Are you interested in learning more about it? I said, well, I've tried everything. My patients even did the HGH shots. I hated it, but they felt so much better. They couldn't stay on that. But I saw the benefit of them losing weight. They had so much less pain, more energy. They slept better. They felt better. But I knew that was not healthy. But I'm open. I'm skeptical, extremely skeptical. But I was in Missouri, the Show Me State. So I ended up flying back out to Missouri and to this practitioner's clinic, spent a week out there and saw what he was doing. It was mind-boggling. I mean, he had patients that were coming in. His female patients are losing on average half a pound a day. His male patients are losing a pound a day. Now that just doesn't happen, and it was continuous. It wasn't for a week or 2 or 3. This was week after week after week. They were losing this weight, and they were keeping it off. I started using this all-natural product that he developed, and I used that for a couple of years, but I got a little disenchanted with that product because I had patients at this time. I had patients in 11 countries, and I couldn't get that product to these other countries. And the weight loss, not for all my patients, but the ones that needed to lose weight, the only way they were going to be successful is using something to help them to be able to stay on this diet. So I developed these all-natural homeopathic weight loss drops that work just as well. And for the last 14 years, I've been using them. And it's been such a game changer to see my patients to be able, like Jonna, to be able to lose this weight. And it's not about, I mean, they love losing the weight, which is great. Everybody wants to look good. What I loved is I was able to reverse their inflammation. I was able to reverse their inflammation on blood work as well as what they felt. C-reactive protein levels, SED rates, A1C levels, blood sugars, cholesterol, triglyceride levels, they all started to become normal within 3 months. This is another patient. This is Nurse Kelly. Now, Nurse Kelly was the head of her OR. She's an OR nurse, and her husband was the head of the hospital in Pennsylvania. When they reached out to me with a phone call, telemedicine call, he said, "Listen, Dr. Murphy, I've done everything. I've centered all the doctors here, everybody that I know, all the specialists. No one's been able to help her. I haven't read your book. Kelly has, and we're willing to do whatever we need to do to see if this will work." Well, I'm happy to share. You can see the before and after. She's now back full time running the ER. Took a little time, but she's back. Many of my patients with this illness, they got so run down, they lost their jobs, just like Nurse Kelly. But Jenny was a first grade teacher, was carrying around a lot of extra weight, just gotten run down. But her fibromyalgia really affected her mental clarity to where she really couldn't interact with her kids because she couldn't even remember what her last sentence was. So she lost her job. She had to retire. But I was able to help her lose weight, get that inflammation off, get some energy. She was able to go back to work the next year. So she's still has kept the weight off and doing fantastic. This is Jill. Jill had lost her job. She did so well after she lost the weight, got rid of the inflammation. She opened up a health food store in Georgia. And by using this program to help them, this is something that finally worked. It allowed them to actually be on a healthy diet and just stay on that diet. So many people want to eat healthy, but they have sugar cravings, they have salt cravings, junk food cravings. They just can't do it, right? They can't do it no matter how determined they are. Within a short period of time, those sugar cravings they cave into them and they can't stay on the diet.
So, I mean, and you went through a great before and after, but what exactly do these homeopathic drops do? I mean, like, what do they actually do when you take them? What is it like to take them, and what do they do?
So that little slide that I showed it with the ghrelin and the cortisol and the leptin, this is how these drops work, and this is how I designed my drops. These are new drops. I need to point that out because when I retired this past December, I wanted to continue to share this diet and this lifestyle. It's helped thousands of my patients over the last 20 years, and I want that to continue, even though I'm not accepting any new patients. What I ran into, Holly, was how do I get my product to all these people in the world? And I found out about some additional drops that are already in 55 countries, and I tested them on 100 of my patients, and they work just as well, if not better. But that little graphic, that slide that I showed, what these drops do, when you start to take them, they totally suppress your appetite. So what they do is they suppress your ghrelin hormone. So within a couple of days of taking these all-natural weight loss drops, you're just not hungry. Then when you do go to eat, because your leptin levels have been boosted by the drops, you find you start to eat, and this is that you normally eat, and you think, "Oh my gosh, I can't eat all that." So you're eating about a third or a half of what you were. Then the other part of it is it balances your cortisol level. So it works on the hypothalamus, pituitary, and the adrenal glands, which is, our self-regulating system, regulates all different systems in the body. And what the drops have been shown to do is they tone down that mind hunger chatter that just won't turn off, or I'm really not hungry, but I want something. Oh, I just need something sweet. Oh, I need something salty. It's the it's this chatter that you can't get rid of that gets you out of bed at 10 o'clock thinking, oh, I just need a bedtime snack. Or that you're sitting watching TV, and next thing you know, you've eaten a bag of chips or a bar of, candy bar. It helps to just turn all that down so that within a week, what you see is you're not very hungry, so you don't have to eat very much. When you do eat, you feel full quicker. And this mind chatter, this hunger chatter, this sugar cravings, it disappears within a week. Part of that is you change your taste buds. And you know this because you talk about this. I know about your own journey. Is once you start eating healthy, what you find is an apple is like the sweetest thing you can imagine. It's, your taste buds literally change within a week or 2 once you get all that junk out of your diet. But these drops, if I didn't have the drops, my patients couldn't stay on the diet. It wouldn't work because if you try to do a low-cal diet, as so many people have tried, you see you can do it for about a week, but then you're miserable. You're miserable, and then you quit losing weight because your body thinks it's starving. And now you start to gain weight and you're eating less. So it's that yo-yo thing, and then you get all feel guilty and you get down on yourself, then you give up on every diet because no diet works, whether it's keto or Mediterranean or whatever, it didn't work. This works, and it's worked for the last 20 years. And it was the only thing that really worked for these individuals. But without losing that weight, I wouldn't be able to get them off their high blood pressure medication. I wouldn't be able to get them off the cholesterol medication, their diabetic medication, the insulin that they were taking, which was making them sicker and sicker because as you know, is with their own if they're insulin dependent, type 2 diabetic, every time they're using that insulin, it's making more fat cells. That's what insulin does. It's an anabolic steroid. It builds things, and one of the things it builds is more fat cells. So it's this vicious cycle that these people that, they were in this, but by getting those hormones balanced, which happens within a few days, it totally just changed everything about what they could and couldn't do with a diet.
And between the old formula and then the new formula with the drops, how many women total, just rough estimate, have you had on them over the last 14, 15 years?
Well, so I've had a few thousand. Yeah, a few thousand. Yeah. And now when I tested these new drops, I reached out to patients and I said, hey, we're testing these new drops. Are you comfortable with that? So we had 100 patients that did these new drops. Now we've got hundreds that are now, because it's been a little while, now, that are now on the drops. They're doing fantastic. And it's just been a game changer for so many people. I love it. I love talking about it. I love the results. I love the testimonials. It's just so much fun. I couldn't imagine doing anything else.
And Dr. Roger, thank you so much for sharing all of this. And I know personally, having been on and off the diet yo-yo for, oh goodness, 30 years, give or take. And, back in being a Dexatrim girl, I am a certified skeptic. I am skeptical about anything, and especially when it comes to weight loss stuff. So I want to ask you some hard questions because I just want to make sure everyone listening, kind of understands, like, if someone listening might be skeptical like me, I'm like, okay, let's ask some really hard questions here because I think it's important not to just share the great news and the weight loss, but like really get to, the core of this. And, so many times we hear, the weight loss supplements and all the things, but they end up, maybe they're not safe at the end of the day. So that's my first big question is what are the ingredients and are they safe? Is there something that we have to look out for or be aware of?
They're all natural, so they're homeopathic drops. In the Accelerate, it's got a special form of B12 that helps to boost your metabolism. This is the Accelerate. So this product has ashwagandha in it, has a little bit of green tea, but it's non-stimulating. It won't raise your blood pressure if you're on if you're on have a heart palpitation condition and you're taking medication to control that. It won't affect that. It's got such a it's probably when you dive deep in it, it's got 5 milligrams of caffeine in it per serving. So a minuscule amount, but it does have a little bit of green tea, mainly for the antioxidant effect of the green tea. That's really the main thing. But again, it's got ashwagandha in it to balance cortisol, and it's got methylcobalamin, which is the preferred form of B12. But this drop here, it's a bundle, so there's 2 different drops that come in the package. But this one is really designed to increase your metabolism. When you're gaining that weight, the more fat cells you have, the more compromised your metabolism is. It just slows down. It can't support all this extra weight. The heart has to pump 7 miles, 7 additional miles for every 1 pound of fat. Isn't that crazy? So that's a stat out of my cardiovascular book. So when you're 1 extra pound of fat, the heart has to pump blood through 7 miles of arteries, veins, and capillaries. That's a lot of work, right? So the Accelerate is designed to balance your hormones, helps to work on the hypothalamus, which kind of regulates these different systems, balance out your cortisol, and it tones down that mind chatter. The Slender X is a homeopathic remedy. So the homeopathic medicine, um, it's all natural. There are no contraindications to any one of these products. Anybody can take them, with the exception anyone that's nursing or pregnant. And there's other practitioners who use these drops with their patients, weight loss clinic, endocrinologists, some of my friends, even if they are pregnant, they're incredibly safe, but I'm just real conservative. So I just say, just wait. They've sold over 1 million bottles of these. So they're incredibly safe. There's no contraindication to any kind of medication. There's no age restriction. I've got an 8-year-old on them, and I've got an 82-year-old on them. So definitely you want to be skeptical, because you don't want to take anything that can be stimulating, anything that can interfere with the medications that you're taking. But there's no side effects to either one of those drops. And I rarely hear of any problem at all. The only time the drops don't work, the diet don't work, is if you don't follow the diet. Because you can overcome, if you're using the drops, you can force yourself to eat that bag of chips. That's, you can do that. But if you stick by the diet, which is a whole foods diet, very easy, very simple diet, and you use the drops, you'll see real quick the difference within a few days of how you feel, and any kind of cravings disappear. And with a few days, you start losing inches and pounds. Uh, so the proof is in the pudding, I guess. Show me, right? Show me. Well, you'll see it. You'll see it on the scales, and you'll see it in the mirror.
What would you say to a woman who has tried the different weight loss supplements over the years and they didn't really do anything for her? What would you say to her?
Totally understand. And I applaud you for being proactive and trying. Some people just give up. But this carry around this extra weight, it's not just, doesn't make, it's not about how you look. I understand that's important to everybody. It's important to me too. But it's about living life to the fullest. And if you've got something that's limiting you, getting down on your hands and knees with your kids on the floor, or you got some kind of addiction, a sugar addiction where you just can't kick it, or you've got a cardiovascular condition that if you lost the weight, you would have no high blood pressure, you could reverse type 2. It's worth it. It's worth it. But I applaud you for trying. But all I can say is the proof is in, as I said, the proof is in the pudding. I've got hundreds of before and afters of patients who've gone through this diet using these drops and continue to keep the weight off. It's mind-boggling, really, because I had tried so many different formulas, so many different diets over the years. And then when this finally started working, it literally saved my practice, because when my book came out, I was flooded with new patients from literally all over the world when the book went worldwide. And the ones that were overweight, I knew I had an answer for. The ones, my anxiety plagued patients that were thin, because they were just, the type A's that have this anxiety issues, mind chatter all day, this nervous energy. Those were much more difficult than the others because the others, if they were carrying around this extra weight, I knew once I could get them on the diet, then they would be a product of the diet. They would see, oh, this is going to work, and then they became proactive. They wanted to stay on a healthy diet because they felt so much better, and they could do it more than a week or two or three. It turned into a lifestyle, and that saved me from so many patients that I couldn't help, and I couldn't get them off their medications that were creating all these side effects.
And I know something that's important, not just important, but imperative for both your practice and my practice as a health coach is getting to that root cause. And how would this, I mean, would this, when, if someone were to say, oh, well, I don't want to cheat or I don't want a band-aid or, they actually want to do it the quote unquote right way. Like I had a new client yesterday and she's like, I don't want to cheat. I don't want to go on Ozempic, because a lot of people think that that's cheating. So, for someone that's like, okay, I'm interested. This sounds good, but I kind of want to do it the right way, the natural way, the long-term approach to get to the root cause. How do these drops tie into that approach?
Well, that's great. I just totally appreciate that. I mean, that's what we teach, right? We want to teach if you got a hole in the roof and every time it rains, the water's flooding the floor and, you sweep it up, you mop it up, whatever. You're treating the symptom, not the cause. But eventually that symptom gets worse. So now you've got mold all over your floor. You're going to have to replace the carpet and the cabinets and you have to move out. It would be much more beneficial just to fix the hole in the roof, right? And that's what we talk about. So my patients, as I mentioned earlier, that inflammation, was driving that pain. It was causing their mitochondria to shut down. So their metabolism was just shot. They just had no energy. It affected their mental clarity, affected their sleep, affected everything. So for me, the first thing to do was to get something that's going to help them to get that inflammation out of their body. Not a non-steroidal anti-inflammatory, not something that can create leaky gut or, ulcers or the diet. We just got to get them on a healthy diet because if you're going to be healthy, you've got to eat healthy. If you want to be healthy and you want to stay that way, it doesn't mean you can't ever cheat, can't have piece of a treat here and there, but that's a treat. It's not a daily occurrence, a bag of chips once a month, you just, okay. It's kind of, I don't advocate it, but once a month is okay, but not every night in front of the TV or applying them ice cream. But the key, Holly, was getting that inflammation out of there. And that's what these drops in the diet allow someone to do. The diet is a whole foods diet. It's what we should be eating. It's what you're teaching your clients. When you walk in a store, you want to shop on the outside aisles. Everything in the middle, you want to be skeptical of because 70% of every prepackaged canned food has got added sugar in it. Not to mention whatever all that else has got in it. But sugar creates inflammation. This is one of the things that it drives inflammation. So this was really an answered prayer for me that I could help them to fix the underlying cause of their problems. So type 2 diabetes, for the majority of people, it's because they're carrying around too much weight. For high blood pressure, not everyone, but for the majority of them, they're carrying around too much weight. And by using this diet and drops that allow them to stay on the diet, losing that weight, within a short period of time, they're able to get off their type 2 diabetic medication and get off their high blood pressure medication. So it really is treating the underlying causes of their problem.
And I'm sure this question is on a lot of women's minds. How are these different than like a GLP-1, like Ozempic?
Well, those medications they're effective. They work. And I've had patients use those, and there's a time and a place. I mean, I've had patients that just could not even do the whole foods diet with the draw. I just couldn't do it. And they needed to lose weight to have surgery, whether it's knee surgery or hip surgery, whatever it is. Okay, you got to do what you got to do. But here's the difference. So the GLP-1, the Wegovy, and the Ozempic, they slow down your ability to absorb and process food, so it sits there, and now you feel full. I mean, they work, but they also will sabotage your muscle production. So now what you start to see, is you start to lose muscle tone. So you see some of these individuals, their face is all caved in. You see them shrinking up in different places because they're losing muscle. If you're not, if you're unfortunate and one of the unlucky, and not to, this is a very small percentage, but if you're one of the small percentage and you get gastroparesis, where your ability to process food shuts down, you can't even have a bowel movement, and you wind up in the ER, which is very dangerous. I've had 2 patients that's happened to. Not to scare anybody, but the big problem I have with the shots is if you're eating the sad American diet, the standard American diet, and you're eating less of it, and you lost weight, but then you get off the shots, and of course, you're going to start gaining the weight back. That's what happens. But you're still on that sad American diet, that junk food, sugar, uh, processed food diet. You're not any healthier. You've lost weight, and I applaud that because it can help you get off some medications and have more energy. I love all that. But you're still eating a junk food diet. Where are you going to be in a year or 2 or 3? And the other thing I caution my patients about is this is new technology. This is new science. It could be the greatest thing in the world as we think that it is. But what are we going to see 5 years from now, 6 years from now? Look at Vytorin. Look at some of these medications that we had years ago that we thought were great, and they took them off the market because of all the side effects. Not to scare anybody, but I was saying, why do you want to spend $400, $500, $600 a month and do it the wrong way when you could do it the healthy way for a lifetime?
Yeah. And I've got one more question that I want to ask you. But I also did want to share my own experience because again, as a skeptic, I was like, well, I want to try these
Yeah.
and I want to see how they work and I want to see, and I noticed immediately that, and I'm someone who has everything dialed in. I mean, from the nutrition perspective, from, exercise and strength training and, walking and sleeping and all of the things totally dialed in. I'm at a healthy weight. If I was at this weight for the rest of my life, totally fine. Like I am super happy at this weight, super healthy. And I did not think that at 54 that I would be losing any weight. So I really didn't have any expectations going on them. But I noticed right away it was, first of all, they taste great. Like they're just a normal flavor. They taste great. And I could tell right away that the leptin was kicking in when I was eating. And I was like, oh. And what's interesting is that I have my meals and I kind of know exactly what it looks like on the plate. So I don't measure anything, I don't count anything. I just kind of know this is what I eat and I put it on the plate. And what was interesting was like, oh, I actually don't have to eat all of that. Like I'm actually full. And what I noticed, the craziest thing was that in 1 week, I lost 2 pounds. Now, that may not sound like a lot, but I'm at literally my perfect weight. And yeah, I'm 54. Do I still have some jigglies? Of course. I just didn't think that my body was ever going to lose anything else. So to be able to lose 2 pounds on, a healthy body with a few extra jigglies, like that got me excited. And it was in 1 week. And that's a healthy amount to lose in a week. So that's why I was like, I wanted to bring you on to talk about them, to share them, because I was like, I saw firsthand for myself, I mean, and the majority of your patients are, wanting to lose a lot of weight. A lot of the women I work with, they want to lose a lot of weight, but there's also the women who maybe just want to lose that last 5 or 10 pounds. And that's always the hardest.
Yeah.
So it's not just losing the weight, it's maintaining that healthy lifestyle. And then it's like that you get to that point where you're like, oh, I just have 5 or 10 more to go. And your body's like, nope, we're done. And I'm here to tell you that nope, we're done does not need to exist. Like there actually can be more, and these drops can help. So
So the majority of my patients they all went on the diet. So everyone went on the whole foods diet, which is exactly as it sounds. It's real food. And they all went on that. And then the majority went on the drops as well, even those that were just, 10 pounds overweight, just so they could balance their hormones and see what that felt like. The drops were actually originally these drops were developed to help balance hormones, in particular women with perimenopause and menopause that were having hot flashes.
And that was actually I wanted to ask you about that because these drops have some unexpected benefits, and especially for women in perimenopause and menopause. So talk to us about some of those.
So what the practitioner found was that the side effect of these women using this for these hot flashes is they started losing weight. That was their side effect. And he realized, wow, okay, there's something to this that's must. So he did, took some time to investigate all this and made some tweaks and changes. And then a couple of years later, another practitioner, Dr. Ray Strand, who's widely known, I always forget his book. What your doctor doesn't know about nutritional medicine may kill you. So I think he sold 5 million copies. But he found out about these drops. He's a internist in South Dakota, and he realized, wow, it takes me a year to reverse type 2 diabetes. It takes me a year to start to reverse people with high blood pressure, cardiovascular disease. If these drops work like I'm seeing them, he spent a week out there. It's going to just totally change my practice, and that's what he saw. It's exactly what I saw. Within 3 months, he was changing blood work and getting people off medication, and now he became the medical director of this company because of it. But the drops do so much more than cause you to lose weight. Now, if you just need to lose 10 pounds, it may come off a little slower. Typically, people lose half a pound a day. But if you just need to lose 10 pounds, as you said, Holly, that's a little harder because your metabolism isn't as bad as some of my patients that needed to lose. I've had patients lose 150 pounds. 100 pounds is not unheard of in my practice, and keep it off. But it balances these brain hormones. So now a lot of that anxiety and that nervousness and that nervous energy and nervous eating, it just goes away. So some patients take the drops not so much for support on the diet. It's just mentally how they feel. They feel so much better. Other patients, they want to stay on it because even though they're eating healthy, they want something to kind of suppress their appetite on a maintenance. So once you reach your ideal goal weight, whatever that is, then you go to a maintenance. So now you just do the drops once a day. You want to do 1 dose a day. And now they last, instead of lasting a month, they last 3 months. So they become incredibly affordable.
This has been such great information, and I want to make sure that everyone has access to learn more about the drops. And I'll make sure to leave the link, whether you're watching this or listening to it, I'll make sure to leave the link in the notes below this video. But I do want to ask you one more question, Dr. Roger, is that we covered so much, and thank you so much for your time and being here today and sharing all of your wisdom. If you have any just parting words for the women who are listening to this, and a few men, shout out to the few men who listen to, what are your parting words? And, just to encourage someone who's listening, who really is struggling to get to that place.
Well, so the drops are not a quick fix. What they are is a transition to a lifetime fix. They allow you to eat healthy and stay eating healthy because they allow you to eat less, get that weight off that's causing you to feel hungry all the time, and then they allow you to be able to feel healthy, feel good. So many people, they just want a quick fix, whether that's the shots or whatever. But the drops are a tool, really. They're a tool to get you to where you can eat healthy and benefit from that for a lifetime. And parting words is it works. It is a game changer. I don't know if you've tried other things. If you will follow the diet and follow the instructions that come with the drops, you'll see you'll be another success story. And I've got, as I said, thousands. I have hundreds of before and after pictures, but I have thousands of patients around the world because it's around my practice was worldwide. It works. It works. And I hope you'll give it a, if this resonates with you, I hope you'll give it a chance because it is amazing the difference you feel. And again, I get it about looks, but how you feel is just unbelievable to be healthy. That is the greatest gift God gives us, is the ability to be healthy and be able to do what we want to do when we want to do it, with no restrictions. So thank you for letting me share this. I love it. I love the opportunity to help people. And this program, this diet and the drops have just been such a blessing to me and to my practice. I love sharing it.
Yeah. And once again, if anyone listening is interested in learning more about the drops, there'll be a link below where you're watching this video. So thank you so much, Dr. Roger, for being here, for your time, for your wisdom. I'm your host, Holly Burton, with my special guest, Dr. Roger Murphy.